In Jesus' name, amen. Have a seat, please. And Mr. Superintendent, if you would establish your quorum, please.
Yes, I will. Linda Hamilton. Michael Nimmer. Brandon Sellers.
Present.
Lois Robinson.
Here.
And Mickey Jones.
Present.
Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Okay, I recommend approval of the revised and amended agenda as presented, which does include the personnel report. And it's also my understanding that we may add executive session.
Yes, there's an executive session.
Okay.
Okay, we have a recommendation from the superintendent for approval of the revised agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Item 3 is approval of our minutes and payroll.
I recommend approval of the minutes and payroll as presented April 18, 2019, and April 30th, 2019.
Okay, we have a recommendation for approval of the minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion. Second.
Any questions?
Comment one, April 18th is regular meeting and April 30th is special call meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposes, nay. And at this time, we will have recognitions.
It's been quite an evening for me. I went to the National Honor Society program at the middle school at 5, and then 5:30 I was up. We were recognizing the band. The band had a record year. The Greenville band had a record year as far as awards and accomplishments. And I just found this out within the past half hour, that his problem is that his band will almost double next year. And it's a problem because of some funding for some instruments that are more expensive. I was not in band. And so I'm very pleased that our programs are taking off like that, and I'm very proud of our future leaders. Speaking of future leaders, we're here this evening to recognize, or for this part of the board meeting, Jabez Sims and Tiffany Giddens. And I just want to take a moment, and Mr. Dean had the football game, so he could not be here. So I guess I'll take more than a moment. And then Mr. Moore had a program he had to attend with a family member that had to do with graduation. Oh, so you are going to talk? Okay, I did not know that. So you can come up, Ms. Smith. I was not aware of that, so I know that he said he might be late. I do want to say this to the two young people we're recognizing this evening. I want you to know that I appreciate young people that understand the balance of the classroom and the athletic field. And so many times in our society, and I understand, with Alabama football, it's a big deal. And it's about Friday night. And I do understand, it's the same with all other sports, that we get so wrapped up in competitions and sports that we forget really at the core it's about the classroom. And the achievements, and I'm not saying you can't be professional athletes and pursue those fields, but those achievements are really a balance of the classroom and what you do, your performance athletically and with your other talents. So I want to thank you for representing our school in a first-class manner with the Achievement Award. That is a big deal in our community. I couldn't actually be there. My father has some health issues, so I was out of town, but that doesn't mean I'm not proud of you. And it's the same speech I've given for 15 years as superintendent in any presentation like this, and it's from the heart. I hope people accept it as such. I want to thank the parents and family members, because my wife and I have 4 children of her own, and it's not easy raising children, especially in this day and age with the social media, with all that the kids have access to. And so I appreciate young people that have represented your home like that, and I do realize where it comes from. We do so much at school, and I'm appreciative of our administrators and teachers and so on, but it's the home. And so thank you, and congratulations to parents and family members for what you do, because that award is representing you as well. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Okay, good evening. To our board members, Dr. Stricker, Central Office members, and to all of the other guests. I'm before you to present to some and introduce to others one of Georgiana's most amazing students. I've known her since she was 8 or 9 years old. And I gave her a nickname, Giddy Up. And believe you me, that's exactly what she would do on a daily basis. She is a well-behaved student, a well-rounded young lady. She works extremely hard in her academics, and she loves making good grades. So whatever she set her mind to do, trust me, she's gonna put her whole heart into it, and that's exactly what she did. She's a very friendly person. She's easy to get along with. However, in high school, she became the captain of the varsity cheerleading squad. She's also captain of the girls softball team. In addition to this, she's the treasurer of several clubs, Mu Alpha Theta, National Honor Society, and her senior class. She's a student in the nursing program at Career Tech here in Greenville. She serves as the student advisory, on the Student Advisory Council, as the nursing representative. She is an honor roll student, all A's the whole way, people. She also took several dual enrollment courses. She is the valedictorian for Georgiana School. She is our 2019 recipient of the Achievers Award. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Tiffany Gibbons.
And again, Jabez, Mr. Dean, you know, he had the football game, and so, why don't you come up here and maybe you can even, go ahead. Maybe you could tell us about some of your accomplishments?
I
tell you, well, I'll just say this, we are very proud of you, and, not only, even right now, it's not only his classroom, his performance in the classroom and what he does in our community, and certainly on the athletic field, but even his disposition. You know, whenever I would see him in school, he would greet me and shake my hand, and so we're gonna miss him, and it's been a pleasure having him in our hallway. So let's give him this.
Thank you. Before we move on, I just want to say again, we applaud Jabez and Tiffany. They were 2 of 31 candidates for the Achievers Award, and as surprised as he seemed tonight, is just how surprised he was on the night he received the honor. It's just hard for him to believe it appeared, but we're so proud of both of you, Jabez and Tiffany, and thank you for doing such a wonderful job. So at this time, Dr. Stricker will come with an update.
And I dimmed the lights so people can read the screen. I'm not going to read every slide. I'm not one of those presenters that's just going to read the slide to you. I will cover the information on there. Go ahead, next slide. Most of you have been to board meetings before in this group, so these are the areas which once a month I will be reporting to the board. It's a 10-minute presentation, so I wanted to emphasize not only to board members but to community members, if you have questions about any information that we're covering, do not hesitate to email me, call me, and again, I make this offer wherever I go. I'll buy you lunch. I'll pay for lunch, to have lunch with you and sit down. If you have any questions about any of this information, for the sake of the board meeting, I do go through it pretty quickly. So we'll go to the first area, student achievement. This past month, I did have an opportunity during my regular classroom visits to talk to students. For the first time in my career, and I'm sure a lot of it is the emphasis that we put on testing. We put a lot of emphasis on testing, nationwide right now. That the students are aware of it, even at the young age, even the little ones are aware of it. And I'm very pleased that when I would go into a classroom, and I just ask them how they did, that they're not only giving me general little kid answer, they're being specific about goals. Well, Dr. Stricker, I met my goal here, or I was a little short of my goal, and so the students are very aware of the goals. I had a little more in-depth conversations with teachers, and I've been going to staff meetings. And so I will let the board know this in the community, that I do have some concerns about, and it's because a lot of it is required, state and federal requirements. And of course, we have our testing and assessment. We want to measure growth, and Ms. Ash will go over much more detail with that. But I want you to know as your superintendent, with all that said, I am keeping an eye on the amount of assessment that these students have, because even some of the kids, you can tell that some of them felt the stress of it. And we don't want them to feel the stress of it as compared to just going in and do the best they can. But I do want to let the board know that it's something that I will monitor and take serious, is the testing. Next bullet point, we're going to be going through an accreditation process. This process has changed, and then Audrey Harris is leading us through the process. And in the past, it was the old-fashioned, put together a bunch of information, have them come in, give them all the information, put the books on the shelf, and move on. It is now, and I am promoting it because I do agree with the model that we have now. It's about continuous growth. It's real life. And so it's not a one and done, not put on a dog and pony show and then you're done. It's going to be a continuous process. So with that said, when we get, if the board is okay with this, when we get to the agenda items about the calendar anyway, Mr. Harrison is willing to conduct board training, and I thought it would be timely to conduct board training regarding this accreditation process, since you have to have the training anyway, and it's a new process. So if you're okay with that, we'll cover it then, and maybe pick a date for the training. Does that work? Okay. Moving on, maintaining programs. As we look to increase our programs, in the program that I just got done attending, the band, like I said, Mr. Johnson told me that program will almost double. And Mickey, I believe it was you that brought up during the budget reduction process when you requested, well, how many students participate in the different athletics? I believe that was you. We do need to proactively set up a way that we are going to monitor programs, because I will continue as your superintendent with the Butler County commitment. I will continue to believe, actually I had a good talk with our new FFA teacher, if the board approves it here this evening, out at McKenzie. I'm a very firm believer that kids need to be involved, and when they're involved, they connect. And so I want the board to know that we'll be proactively putting together an evaluation system like the high school band. How are we evaluating the effectiveness of programs, especially with money being tight? And so that's something that I'll be working on. I attended another workforce development meeting this past month, and it was a discussion that needed to take place, and probably is even under my leadership a little bit past due. And that is the connection of what we are training our students within the Career Tech program, in not only jobs within the general society in our state and in our country and world, but jobs in our community. And so it was I liked it because it wasn't your general and non-specific discussion. It was very specific with people from the business and industry in our community. And so we're going to work harder to make that connection of, okay, Mr. Sellers, you have a company in our community. What specific skills do you need? And we're going to involve you more in our process. And so that was a very positive meeting that we had. I also had a meeting with the Job Corps Center in Montgomery. I've heard good things about it. I've heard some challenges with that program. But I will say this, if you get a chance, again, I'm trying to get through this update quickly, but community members and Board of Education, if you could Google that, I think it's something we need to look at. It really is it's a government program that for students that aren't ready for, after they graduate, they're not ready for the workforce or advanced education. It's a program, a place they can live, they're taken care of, they get training, and the goal is to get them either in the military, advanced education, or get them a job. You can't beat that. So it is something that I'll be looking at, and that again is job It's Job Corps Center, and it's on your handout, and that is in Montgomery. School climate. I'm going to continue to attend building level meetings. I have been doing that, but I'm approaching it a little bit different. Again, especially since the ad valorem and budget reduction process, not only within our community but within the schools, I'm really looking to do the best that I can to continue to bring us together as a team. And so when I go to the meetings, I'm going to listen, which I know the Board of Education and people in the audience know I like to talk. I do like to talk, and I like to lead. But I'm going to these meetings and I'm listening, and I'm just attending the meetings, and I'll continue to do that. And then also we're going to continue to have recognitions that are authentic, not just here's a certificate real quick before board meeting, but Tina's been working with me, and so we're going to be recognizing the food service, and I can't tell what she has planned because it's a surprise. But we're really going to have some good programs to recognize the staff that we have. Again, this is all under the auspice of school climate. And so these will be recognitions that this lady right here, she doesn't like credit, but puts her heart into it. And there are really going to be some neat things that we have planned that we have on the agenda right now is for food service and transportation. So we'll continue to work on those relationships with our staff and make sure our staff know that we appreciate them. Next slide, maintaining evaluation process. With the evaluation process, I want to make sure the board's aware we had a good discussion today in the principals meeting. And while valuation, the traditional evaluation that people are used to is either annual or twice a year, an employee gets evaluation where they come in and you let them know their performance. But we are having heart-to-heart discussions about progressive discipline. In other words, if we have, maybe the word discipline shouldn't even be in there, the bottom line is if we identify, or if our principals identify, or our directors or leaders, program leaders identify something that needs to be worked on with an employee or a problem with an employee, that we need to get on that right away, not wait for an annual evaluation. I emphasize with the group listening that it really isn't headhunting. It really is that, hey, if I have an issue with Matthew, but he knows I'm like that anyway, for me to wait for an annual evaluation is not beneficial to the kids of the school. And so what I would do is, and it's progressive. At first it's a verbal discussion, then maybe there's something in writing and so on. But I want the board to know that evaluation isn't going to be just your typical annual evaluation. Facilities and technology. I'm going to be meeting with the maintenance staff. I'm going to try to do it monthly. And it's such a small group, I'm just going to take them out to lunch. Everyone likes food, so I'm going to take them out to lunch. And it was real beneficial, and it's just not just to get to know them better, but to really listen to our maintenance staff as we're really going to dig more into facilities. And so I will be having those meetings with that group, and they're informal. They're informal meetings, but they're very beneficial. The next item there, and community members, if you are interested, please email me, text me. Most of you have my cell phone number. But I'm going to be asking for community members, board members, some teaching staff, and we'll get our clipboards out. And we're going to go building to building, and we're really going to inspect our buildings with a community team. We're going to inspect the buildings for cleanliness and just to make sure buildings are operational. And the benefit, this is not semantics and it's not to waste anybody's time, but even have a couple board members, and we can rotate board members for the different schools. So like maybe you probably want to be in the McKinsey team and so on. Again, this is like the evaluation process. This is not a got you system as much as if we see things in the school building when we're walking through McKinsey, for example, it's good that the board member, and maybe Mayor Odom may join us, that we all see that these are some concerns, and so if there is funding available, we know where to channel the funding. As part of this process, we are going to develop a system for when a custodian goes in the room, what are the checklist items? What are the expectations of your teachers? Again, I'm picking on Miles right now and McKinsey. What are your expectations for your teachers that when the custodian goes through there daily, did they sweep the floor? Did they erase the markboard? Did they wipe off the top of the desk? What are those expectations for cleanliness in the restrooms, hallways, and so on? So that's something that I want the board to know that I'm gonna be focused on in the next year. Safety and security is the same as last month. We are in the process of updating our plans in accordance with state guidelines. Communication and PR, this is an area that I want the board to know, and I'll even be, open about it. With my evaluation, the board conducted an evaluation of my performance, and that is a part of what we do to make us all better. This is an area that I'm very focused on personally, and as the superintendent, it is a category that was already on my radar, but it's a category that I'm really dialed into, and that is to really, whether it was, certainly there's no malice in it, inadvertently, there may have been some with the ad valorem and budget cuts. Those were some tough times for our community, no question about it. So, for example, this past month, I have set up meetings with all three mayors from all three communities. I hope to meet with them on a regular basis and other community leaders. I've also attended the city council meeting. I wasn't able to make McKenzie's just because it's the first of the month. And again, I was out of town because my father in Indiana, I had to be out of town. But I do plan on attending as many city meetings as possible. I did go to the county commission meeting workshop last month and also this month. And so I want the board to know that I am going to work hard on those relationships for the good of our community. And then there's many other things, I'm not gonna read them to you, but there's many other programs that each month, and like with the Chambers Quarterly, that I will continue to attend as we work together as a community. Fiscal responsibility. I do appreciate the job that Brandy does on our monthly reporting, because that's very important, especially when we're at that 1 month, especially when you're right on that edge of what the state requires you to have. And so it's very important that we have a monthly reporting system, so I do appreciate what you do with them. We will continue to do that. We will monitor our budget very closely. There's some good news from the state, and so Brandy may talk about that a little bit. So I really believe that we're gonna add to our fund equity. Is it gonna be amount of money? No. But even the fact of going from deficit spending to adding to fund equity, even if it's a slight increase, that's very important for us, for the stability of our school system. And then the last bullet point on there, I do want our community to know that I've always felt that as superintendent, that I should lead by example. And I know it's not a huge amount of money, it's not gonna change the world, but within my contract there is, and it's not fine, it's short of a signature, but there'll be a 4% increase. And just, I want the board to know that I do take to heart our discussions, and that I will be declining that. And again, I know it's not gonna save the world. I know $6,000 doesn't save the world, but certainly I do agree with, the discussions that we had. I do agree that the superintendent should lead by example. So with money being tight, I just want the board and community to know that, that I would decline that. And $6,000 again doesn't save the world, but hopefully it adds to a program or two. So anyway, any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mosley?
So this month, the financial update is for March, and March is the halfway point of the fiscal year. For March 2019, accounts payable expenditures $346,299.64. Gross payroll $1,898,562.80. And we ended March with 1.42 months of operating balance, which is $2,753,351.69. And then the net operations year to date, which is your expenditures year to date, is $11,246,891.05. And the next screen, this shows our general fund, any fund balance over the years. And as I've mentioned in previous meetings, you can see from 15 how it's just gradually declined. In 2018, there was a big decline. And then I put February and March on there. February, put it on there to show that was the month that we received, January and February, when we collect the bulk of our ad valorem collections. And then in March, it declined a little bit from the previous month. And with talking about fund balance, I made myself some notes. So, I've about the Advancement in Technology Fund. And so this year, that's Senate Bill 196. It's not law yet because it hasn't been signed off by the governor. But, we feel pretty sure that, that it's gonna go through with what they're projecting. Last year, we received $156,049, and this year, they, have us receive $783,629. So that's really good for us. So with that, I'm thinking we can eliminate our $290,000 deficit and end the year plus. So that's good news. I have good news. Finally have something good to say. But yeah, so, you know, in the budget, the last budget amendment I presented early in the year, it was a $290,000 deficit. So there's 6 uses that we can use that money, and part of it's for, building insurance, and then we can use it to help pay for transportation, and we have some building insurance and transportation fuel charges budgeted in local, so we can move that out of there, eliminate our deficit, and then have money to do repairs and deferred maintenance.
Randy, is there some stipulation in there about that money being spent by the end of September?
No, we have until 2020. Yeah, so we can start spending it in this year and then spend it next year as well. So then, any more questions on that? Alright, so this slide is our 1-cent sales tax analysis, and, from October through April of 2019, sales tax collections were up by 7.4% compared to October through April of last year. And so we're, starting to work on a budget amendment, in which the board will approve next month. And so since our sales tax collections are up by 7.4%, I want to conservatively adjust our budget, and I'm thinking maybe increase what we've budgeted for sales tax collections by about 3.5%. Which, so that'll help as well, that'll help about 75,000. And hopefully it'll keep coming in like that, especially with the summer months coming up. This next slide is the same information, I just eliminated fiscal year 2015 and 16, so it would unclutter the graph a little bit. The red line is, 2019 collections, and you can see that 4 of the 7 months, the collections are higher than the previous years. The next slide is our property tax analysis, that's the ad valorem. October through March 2019 collections are very comparable to last year during the same time. There's a slight little growth of 2.2%. And the next slide is just a graph of that information, and the red line is 2019. But that's basically it that I have. I talked about the Advancement Technology Fund. And as far as the budget, legislature is projecting a very healthy budget for next year. They've increased, funding for, Bright Beginnings, ARI, and, the classroom instruction support funds are going to be increasing, so it's looking really good. I mean, as well as they're funding 4% increases. Any questions?
Thank you. This is one time you could have come behind this ash.
Yeah, right.
Still got your applause. Yes. Okay, Ms. Ash.
Good evening, everyone. I saved a couple of cents, and I, printed in, black and white. Because I notice sometimes when I'm up, especially when it comes to numbers, I see you kind of squinting at the screen and, you know, kind of want something. Dr. Stricker has this from earlier, but you want something in your hand to be able to look at, and then I also have some, you know, highlighters just in case, you know, if somebody wants those. So good evening, everyone. So before I get started, I do want a public service announcement, because I did all of this and then I thought about, man, I could have put that on there. So while I have everyone's attention, please, sirs, please, ma'am, as he talks about culture and climate, there are culture and climate surveys out there. We want the feedback. You can get whole church, if you're at church on Sunday and just tell people, let's go to the Butler County website right now. And I know somebody will like, I don't wanna hear what I got to say. Yes, we do. because we will only get better if we know our current reality. So we want feedback from anybody, so if you have a computer, you just go to the Butler County website. Ashley, Noel, and Matthew did a great job with setting it up, that as soon as you go to the Butler County website, it'll pop up and say, have you filled out your survey? And it'll take you to the link for your child's school. So please, sirs, please, ma'am, as we're moving forward, we want that data, because we can't get better if we really don't know. And sometimes we find out, like with Facebook, people like to be anonymous sometimes and make those comments. So the best thing about it is, if you're afraid sometimes to say how you really feel, not that this is a way to just get at folks, but really, there's true concerns out there and we need to know about them. So if you could, please share that and tell people, hey, get on there and let your voices be heard. So that's my public service announcement. So I'm gonna say this. Usually I get up and I know people are like, woo, she like, woo, woo, you know, but because there are amazing things happening. So that's like my excitement right there. So the first thing I'll say is woo, woo, because we have some great things going on. But I don't want people to mistake. So somebody said this before, they were like, but we're growing, and you're always telling the board how we're growing, and I said, and we are, and it's fantastic. But the reality is this. When our proficiency is not at least 50%, I really can't get that excited. You know, because if the proficiencies are still like 25, 30%, it's like telling a child, you know, congratulations, you're awesome. Sorry. Congratulations, sorry. That's not okay. That's never going to be okay for me. So yes, before I get started, whatever tone comes out, because I don't know what tone will come out, because the data is the data. But what I want to let you know is I am super proud of how our teachers and administrators have dug in. I am proud of how our students have owned this process, and they are asking about their data, and they're wanting to know what do I need to get better in, and how can I reach my target. That was intentional. That didn't happen just because, you know, they just decided we want to know more about our data. We made a commitment at the beginning of the school year at Institute, and there was a challenge put forward, and I said every child should know their numbers. We accept that in athletics. We say that. We say, look, you need to know how many miles you run in how many seconds. We need to know how many layups you can do in this many minutes. We need to know how many free throws. We need to know what your track time. We are constantly collecting data and trying to improve upon that data in every other area. But then when it comes to education, somehow the data is like, oh, okay, well, you know. No, that's an indication. It's not everything, but there's an indication that something needs to happen. So as we're looking at this data, I want to make sure everyone understands it's a tool, but it's not a hammer, it's a flashlight. We're not using this to bash people. We're using this to figure out where we need to improve so we can get there. Because if we don't accept our current reality, then any road will take us to the next step. Or said a different way, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And how will you know if you got there if you don't know what it was that you were shooting for? We can't be okay until we're at least at there. Not even, we gotta get there. So before we get started, yes, woo, we did some stuff, and we're gonna celebrate that because it's worth it. It's hard to move data, and we've moved it. But we celebrate today, and as I think somebody said, Nick Saban say, well, for 24 hours, then it's back to work. All right? So here we go. So our data. So the first thing we have here, an itty bitty small print. I'm gonna get over here. All right, the itty bitty small print, and that's why I printed it before the board. This is the same data we looked at, not the same data, but this is the DIBELS data that we looked at a previous board meeting past mid-year when we talked about the growth. So you can see on that far right, it says 124 students were in court at the beginning of kindergarten. Out of those 124 students, we had 61%, that was 61% that were in court. That means 61% of our kindergarten students were in court at the beginning. 61% of those students that were at the beginning in court stayed in court. That's great, because we didn't lose anybody. All right, you see how that works? In the middle, we had 25 students at strategic. This is all of Butler County. 25 students at strategic. That was 12.3% of those total students. Out of those 25 students, or that 12%, 11% moved to core, which is where they need to be. That is awesome and amazing. We had one that stayed there. Now, this last part is the part where I start to get a little antsy, because any child left behind is a child I'm worried about. But let's look at this. So 26.6% of all the students at the beginning of the year, before anybody touched them, coming from the house, 26.6% of our students, or 54 students, came in at intensive, meaning they needed some help, okay? They needed some real help. And when people say, what you mean they're behind? How they get behind? They're in kindergarten, how did they get behind? Well, if you haven't been read to at the house, if you haven't been talked to at the house, if they don't know how to flip books at the house, if they're not hearing sounds at the house, if they're not coming with that vocabulary, coming into kindergarten, if they haven't been in a first class pre-K, then guess what? That's what happens. So they are behind when we get them. So what I'm happy to say is, out of that 26.6%, 20.2%, that means 41 of those 54 students that came in behind moved all the way to core. That is amazing. Yeah, that's a woo-woo, you're right. Because that means people had to work for that. Another 6 students moved to strategic. The 7 students that are still at core, we know who they are, we know what the issue is, and it's been addressed. That's what I want to tell you about data. It would be one thing if I sat before you and said, woo woo, but it's good or whatever, and we look at those 7 students and say, oh well, baby, we did the best that we could do. That's not what data's supposed to do. It's supposed to tell us, hey, there's something wrong here, you need to do something. Because if we don't, those students are going to continue to get further and further behind. Contrary to what people say, students, they drop out in high school, but they've been dropping out since kindergarten. They just wait until they get old enough to drop out, but they've been dropping out. And if you look at their data, you would see that. That's the significance of it. I won't go through it step by step with you. I wanted to show you how we're looking at the data, but what I will share with you, on the end of each one of these, it actually tells us where we're currently at. So board members, you have in front of you the specifics so you can see. I wanted to explain how that works, so if you're getting at home and you want to look through it, you'll know how that works. But what I want the public to see at the end is first grade, we have intensive 17%, we have strategic 10%, then we have core 71%. I'm concerned, okay? Second grade, we have intensive 16%, strategic 15.5%, and then core 68.6%. Again, I'm concerned because DIBELS means Dynamic Indicator of Basic Early Literacy Skills. And it's not pie in the sky. It is the expectation that 100% of these students should have all 100% of those skills. But if you look at the fine line, if you look at how things are shifting from this to this to this, you will see that we are doing a lot of movement, but we have too many children that are being left behind and they're in the cracks. But again, for all of these students, the principals in-house, they can tell me, have we not looked at this data? We know who those students, why they didn't move, what the areas are. What's the issue at WOP that you said as we were going through the data, you started looking, you said?
I looked through and I saw that our strategy is we start with the lowest, we move up, and we realized in looking at the data, because I caused you concern, and when we got to looking at the data, we need to start this ORF early.
And for those of y'all in the public, what's ORF?
It's a composite, it's oral reading fluency. So it's a composite score where we worked at, we blew the roof off of it. But we did not start the ORF early, so we need to find a way to get that in from the beginning.
And they're already making plans. But do you see what I mean by this is how data is being used? Not as a hammer to go and tell you, hey, he ain't did it, but oh, wait a minute, hold on, I'm noticing, hey, what we did worked. But what we need to do is form a strategy to address this issue earlier on in the year, and that formulation is already happening. So, again, good stuff happening, celebrate for 24 hours, we move. But, we still got work to do. All right? So, someone asked a question because these are recommended goals. So let me tell you former goals. Last year we were using recommended goals. Let me tell you the difference between the two of them right quick. Former goals are the essential, quintessential can student read goals. That is what I need to know as a teacher to be able to teach goals. The recommended goals are in line with later success on standardized tests. So when I came in, I was like, no, we need to teach first, then we're worried about the test later. That'll handle itself. However, I felt it was important too, though, as not to be deceptive, to show them what would it have looked like had we been doing the recommended goals again this year. That's what's on the next page, next slide. So we want to flip there. So here are the recommended goals. So, if you look across kindergarten, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19. Now, at first glance, you might say, oh, wait a minute, hold on. And I don't want to soak up your time because I can have a lesson right here and ask you questions and you can tell me something. But what I want you to notice is, at first glance, you're like, wait a minute, there were 61 in core according to recommended. There are 62 this year. That's not big. Yeah, when you're first looking at this, but what I want you to look at is that intensive over there that was 25 and now it's 14. 25 and 14 strategic last year, and now it's 20 intensive and 19 strategic. So the lower end is getting lower, the strategic is getting higher. So did we do a great job according to this on the higher end with the other students? That's where we need to work. According to this, I'm still working on the other data, so I just want to make sure you understand either which way you look at it, whether you look at it with the new totals from beginning of the year to now, or whether you look at it from historical perspective, all of it is growth in the right direction. Does that make sense? There's something else though that I'm concerned about. And that's why I had it highlighted in yellow up there, and that's where it's a little thrown off. So then what I did with almost all of the data is follow the students. Because it's easy, because what if you had a great group of students this year, but then you had a bad group of students last year, or vice versa, and I say bad, hold on, rephrase. What if you had some students that were some go-getters and that came in and were all in pre-K and everything was fine that year, and then the next year we lost a couple of units, so you're not comparing apples to apples data. So I did it both ways every time to see, is the growth just a spike because that was a class that was historically better, or is it real growth? And in all cases, when we get up with our bigger data, it was growth. I was concerned about Matilda's staff, because I'm like, in kindergarten, I had 63% core. But then in first grade, those same big group of students, I know people move in and move out, but now they're at 46. Now mind you, the benchmark keeps rising. But that's a problem we gotta address, because these are dynamic indicators of basic early literacy skills. Even though those skills from kindergarten aren't those skills from the first grade, those same students are expected to perform at proficiency with those skills. So, again, if you don't understand that there's a problem, you can't address it. But again, I'd already had some administrators say to me, I always thought there was a concern. I had a feeling, but now we have the data to prove that there's a problem, and then we can dig into it and figure out specifically what that problem is. Some of it was exactly what was said. Hey, there are certain things we didn't address at the right time of year, and this is how this is panning out. So this is how we're using it. It's the same thing. I'm seeing a pattern that I don't like, but I wanted to let you know. It is growth, but I am concerned about that same group of students and what we're doing with them. So, any questions so far? Okay, next one. All right, So last time I was here, I told you about MyOn as a program. These are unsolicited testimonials. Teacher, and I forgot her name, I didn't put the teacher stuff, I was quick to put the children up here because it means so much for me. Tell me the name.
Miss Gunner, Mary Catherine Gunner.
Mary Catherine Gunner, we sent out the emails and said, hey, MyOn's up, it's on, it's available. That's the online library that I told everyone about the last time. So some students have gotten on, gotten ready, and all of a sudden I get the email from a teacher saying, oh my gosh, I love this. I love this. This is great, Miss Ash. You know, what are we gonna do? And I was like, you know, and I didn't respond that day. I had a lot going on, but I was like, oh my gosh, this makes me feel good. But this right here, and I won't read them all, but I just want to read a few. She said, I think MyOn is good for the county because people that did not previously read much are reading like crazy. I really enjoy it and think everyone else loves it too, so please keep MyOn because it helps everyone around. In my very own opinion, you should purchase MyOn because it may help in many different ways. Maybe if someone has trouble reading, it will read to you if the book you read was audio. We also get to read many books that are not in the library, and you get to read many genres of books, of which you can. Genres. I love MyOn because it gives us opportunities to read books that are not familiar to us, and it is a brand new experience. Please get MyOn. It's the best reading site I have ever been on. Sure, they've gone on a lot of sites in their days. And this went on, y'all, for about 40 students. Of them just saying, and one little boy said, and I don't think it's up here because I just had to cut the top one because we'd be here all day. But he said, it lets you read a lot of different books, and I like cowboy books, and our library doesn't have cowboy books, but I can find cowboy books on MyOn. When children are interested and they want to read about stuff and that's available to us, they can read at home, they can read in the car, they can read, it creates a culture that says this is the thing to do. You know, you read your MyOn book today, it changes the culture. So I just want to let you know, if you haven't heard about it, continue to tell people about it. They can get on through Clever. I know schools are sending home some flyers, so if you haven't seen it, be on the lookout. But I just wanted to give you a little update because that just came from out of nowhere. But I wanted to share with you, you know, what students are saying because I think that that's powerful. All right? Questions? Remember, that's the thing, it's free. It's free till the end of July, so I don't know what we'll do beyond there, but it's free. All right, so here we go. Reading growth comparison. Now, here's where it gets good. This is good. This is good stuff. Okay. It's right there in black and white. Every piece of data before you. This is 3rd through 8th grade reading. The top is last year. The bottom is this year. It just speaks for itself. It is hard to grow percentages. Now this is growth now. So this is my proficiency, but this is growth. Just somebody do the math right quick. I know people are like, I don't do math. I was told there's no math. But how many percentage points from last year to this year in growth? Anybody? 11, thank you. 11%, y'all. That is amazing, amazing reading growth. Now let me tell you, I want more, but this is real. Because if there was 50% and I was telling you there was 50% growth, you should be checking all of the facts, all of the data, and finding somebody. Because 50%, that's unrealistic. I was surprised about the 10, or I was surprised about 11%. I had to go back a few times because I don't like to get up and say something that's not true. This is good growth. This is people digging in. We still have work to do because if you look in those columns at the bottom, that far below and below is below. That's the problem. We don't have students growing, and this is just compared to other students just like them. So people can't say, well, but Ms. Ash, you know, these students, or this one came in, the data compares, if you're a 5th grade student that came in on a 2nd grade level, that data compares you with other 5th grade students that came in on 2nd grade level. So really, you should want that to be high. Does that make sense? But, is that great? Will we take that? Sure we will. Celebrate for 24 hours. Then we're gonna get back at it. Next slide. Math. Same thing. What do you say? 10% growth. Top to bottom. But again, you look at our belows and our far belows. Now, I want you to look at this. If you look at math last year, Butler County, far below, how many was it? 294. So for those kids that can't see, I understand. 294. This year, what's the far below?
178.
178. That's growth. People are moving, but the problem is they move to the below, but then some of our belows had to move to the above because that below is still below the below from before. So somebody went over there to the above, that's where that 10% came in. So we really do have some good growth going on, but we still have way too many students that are below just in the growth compared to other students. So I have to ask this question. If we have students that are capable, and I believe we do, I see them every day, and we have employees that are capable, and we do, then the question is, if we have the right people and the students are capable, I know that's what the community wants, then where's the disconnect? Most of the time that's in resources and support. Let me be real clear. I don't mean like just buying stuff to be buying stuff. But what I am talking about is making sure that we have available to our teachers resources, professional development, so that they can put some tools in their toolbox. Capable. But we only know what we know until we know better. Until somebody, and I didn't know anything about golf, I used an analogy. I learned one, I only knew there was 9 iron. Now if I went out on there trying to play golf with the 9 iron all day, I'd be just swinging stuff, I don't know, right? But then somebody said, well, no, Miss Ashley, there's a putter. Okay, guess what? Because you know, you're right there at the end, you don't wanna pull the 9 iron out and start trying to put it in. That's what the putter is for. It's a special tool for that reason. Our teachers need those special tools for that reason. It's not lack of wanting them. I'm sure everybody wants a full set of golf, right? Golf clubs, right? Yeah, there you go, clubs. They want them. But guess what? If you don't have them, you buy them one at a time. Our professional development is giving our teachers those tools one at a time so that one student that needs to go far, we can knock it out. One that's just right there, tip it in. We gotta have the right tools and the right resources. So that's a connection. We did this really without doing anything else but looking at data and making students a part of the conversation. Most students see education as something that is done to them and not done for them. So with them knowing their numbers, with their teachers explaining to them what this means and where they're trying to go, they became participants in their education. And that's what we want with families as well. We don't want families on the sideline. We want you to participate in the education and say to the teacher, okay, I understand my child is here. What is it specifically that my child needs to get to the next level? And how can I help them so that we can all function in this together to move children? So again, 10% and 11% growth, we'll take that. Absolutely. But we just got more work to do. Celebrate for 24 hours, keep going. All right, next slide. Now, there's that proficiency data that I was telling you about. The other one was what data? Growth. This is proficiency. This is apples to apples. I'm gonna say this not as a disclaimer or an excuse, and I'll make excuses, it just is what it is. It is hard, and I don't really know even how the state is doing it. The assessment that we took is not an assessment based on the standards that our teachers are required to teach. But they give them a goal, and they just say if they met this goal, then they consider it proficient. But it is the tool that our state uses, and this is what we are going to be judged against. And so I put this before you, but I need to let everyone know that in the grand scheme of stuff, this may not be the best data in the world to look at if you're really trying to talk about teaching and learning, but it's the data that we have, and we're gonna get better at it, and you will see that we have. At the top, you will see the reading data from 2017, 2018. We were only at 26% proficiency. That goes back to my, you're proficient, you're not, you're not, you're not, you're proficient, you're not, you're not, you're not. That's fine unless it's your child sitting there, this one of the nights. And I've got a child sitting right at Greenville Middle School. So I understand, I don't want it to be mine, I don't want it to be anybody's. That's a real reality that we're gonna have to contend with. And it'd be different if it was all over the state like that, but guess what? We move up the scale, and I know people are like, don't compare us to Best Stadium, Hoover, whatever, Mountain Brook, whatever. But guess what? Our children don't have to compete with those children when they get out of school. So if they can do it, we can do it. It's possible. I believe that. And if I didn't, I wouldn't be here. We can do this. And anybody who's working for our school system has to believe that that's possible. Because if not, you're probably in the wrong place. We have to want more, we have to expect more, we have to push more. All right? So, reading is up because last year was how many percent? 26. This year it's how much? In green? 29. It's up 3%. These are proficiency. Now, that's good growth. I still hate it. Still not at least 50% of our students. Because sitting in that big pot, 929, I like to put numbers instead of just proficiency. Because I think sometimes you see those percents and people just think like, oh, you know, that's 929 students that aren't proficient. And that's broken down by grade level. And just in case y'all are like, yeah, aren't the principals presenting? They're gonna be a little, since I'm explaining everything ahead of time, they're gonna be real quick with theirs. But they're gonna do it at the next board meeting, and they're gonna have 5 minutes so that you see individual schools, and then they will speak for themselves as to what their plan is. Okay? All right. The one thing here that I'm concerned about is, unlike math, which you're gonna see in a minute, which I'm still pleased with, we actually have reading specialists in our district. So I would have hoped that our math was more indicated that we had those additional resources where we don't have them for mathematics, but we do have reading specialists. So I've been talking to them about that. Because it's got to move, especially if it's connected to you as an individual. Like, if you tell me you're in that class 50% of the time, then I'm expecting the data to show improvement above other people that weren't receiving our services. Everybody has to work, we all have to improve. So we've been having very candid conversations about data from that perspective as well, as it relates to the resources that we do have. All right, next screen. Last year, 25% proficiency in math. This year, how much in green? 27%. It's 2%. I wrote it at the top, so the 2017-18 is at the top. So you have that information available to you. And all of the totals, every grade level, L1 and L2, and forgive me, L1 and L2 are level 1 and level 2. Those are non-proficient. Then level 3 is your on level, and level 4 is like your way above level. So, and forgive me for not stating that up front. You get into the education zone and you assume everybody knows that. But so level 1, level 2, those are your, lowest to highest. Okay? So again, 2% growth in most plans. If you look back at like Dr. Bice's plans, many plans across, most plans call for 2 or 3% growth every year. You don't get many plans that say, we're gonna have 10% growth because it's a 10% lie. It just really doesn't happen like that. And if it does, which it kind of happened like that with the State Department this year when they sent it to the federal government and they sent it back and said, no sir, no ma'am. Yeah, did that not happen, y'all? They sent it, the State Department sent that to the federal government said, you're trying to tell me you had an X amount of % increase from last year, go back and do it again. And they did go back and do it again because it wasn't right, and they knew it. It was not indicative of real growth. All right, next one. These next few I'm gonna go through very quickly. These are just the new tests. Difference between this year's test, next year's test. Criterion reference test. If they say teach course of study, this test is going to test what's in the course of study. This year, you taught the course of study, but the test tested wherever you were to wherever you grew to, and they gave you a percentage. That's not okay. So it's not, you couldn't tell if teachers had actually taught their content on their grade level because the test didn't test that. Does that make sense? This one will. This is a typical multiple choice test, A, B, C, D. Next slide. This is something people might not be as familiar with. This is a multiple select test, so students can actually have 2 correct answers on the test. That's different for our students. Next slide. The next, okay, next slide, I already pointed that out. The next slide, this is two-part evidence-based selective response test. So the first one, it says, which generalization could best be made about the nail suit? You pick one. Next slide. In the next slide, move on, next, sorry. Then they ask you, this is what a student composes an essay after reading the associated passage. So they answer the first question, and then they have to go in and tell where the text evidence was for what they just stated in the first piece. Yeah. Next slide. But, yeah, okay. So this is the plan, focus, do, act. So this is your proofreading. Move through. That's all there for the students. Here's your auto-scored constructive response. So there's nobody sitting and the teacher saying, well, I think my baby's a 3, or I think they are auto-scoring this based on very certain criteria. So go to the next slide. Here they go through and it's highlighted. Like, here are the specific things that they were looking for these students to have understood that this was the evidence of what they were talking about. It needs to correspond to that. Next one. And there's the auto-scored constructive response where you're putting the stuff. Click the next. This is where they drag. Author is helpful. Put that information next to it. Author is humble. Put that text evidence next to that. Author is fit to rule. Put that text evidence next to that. Where, how do you know? Next slide. And that's where they put it in. Slide them in. All right, next. I'm gonna skip through some of these. You get the idea. We'll get to the map. Keep clicking. Keep clicking. I know my time has been well spent. There's a highlighting tool. There's again setting. Keep going. This is where you're putting the setting. Keep going. Here's where they can actually move. So if they're talking about the order in which something happens, moving that stuff around. Keep going. This is where they can move it. Here's your NESA writing prompt. Keep going. Here's some mathematics. Make a bar graph showing the total number. So there's no read the paper and then just, if your standard says make a bar graph, they want to know that your students know how to make a bar graph. And you're gonna have to do that. Next one. And here it is. And you gotta fill it in on the computer. All of this is computerized. None of this is paper pencil. All the way down to the 2nd grade. So our students have to do this. So you talking about stepping up to the learning curve? So this needs to be happening all the time. Next one. It's one of my favorites. Protractors. Your student has never used one, you got teachers pulling worksheets out, and, oh yeah, it looks about 90, more than 90. No, they actually, it looks like this, and it says how many degrees, and you're looking like, how are students supposed to know how many degrees? It's on the computer. They want them to pull out a protractor? Yes, they do. Click the slide. The protractor comes from up the top. They have to click the tool from the top and slide that protractor down and move it around and measure that thing on the computer, and then put it in there. All right, next one. Next one. So you see all of that. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. That's circumference. This last one is algebra. So if someone says you bought a phone at this cost and you had to pay X amount of dollars every week for 10 weeks, how does that look on the graph? And you have to chart it on the computer. Then Gym 2 charges $40 to join the $9 a week. Find that one, then point, and the answer is that point that's in between there. That's what they're gonna have to do. So we're gonna know whether or not they know next year. This is real. But guess what? Our teachers are gonna be prepared. We're gonna have professional development. You'll see the plans. Click the next one. I'm sorry. So you have it on the back of this. It's really small, but as board members, I just want you to see the last page in that packet. I skipped all of the rest of those. I didn't want you to have all those slides with the test. But the very last paper is just an overview of a plan for what we're going to do. So now that you've seen the data, it's, but how are you gonna address it? What are we gonna do? So what you'll see is just a short synopsis. I didn't give you all of the details of who and what and how much money and all this other stuff, but you can just see a structure for how professional development is gonna be used to address some of the things that you see in the slide. Any questions? Okay, thank you for your time.
I think it's important that our community see that the resources that we're seeking will be very specific and analyze very carefully where we're using them. And one of my concerns as a superintendent is that our students don't do well on the test, not because of their ability or even knowledge, but because we
2.5 years ago, when we had finally got a presentation from our curriculum director, and the data was horrific. And in the middle, or after that presentation, the question was asked, what do we do? And the response was, I don't know. It was literally, I don't know. And I mean, I was embarrassed when I heard the response. I mean, I was completely embarrassed. Data was horrendous. And the curriculum director had no idea what to do. You have no idea how great of a breath of fresh air it is that you know the data, you can present it to us, and you know what to do to get us and are moving us in that direction. How wonderful that is, and how grateful I am to see that. I mean, that's just, it's in a change in 2.5 years. It has not been that long ago that was that dismal.
To a question like that one time was, we have to work harder. And I vividly recall that because it was like, I mean, smart.
Yeah, you asked the question, and the response was, I don't know. Literally.
We have to do something. It's basically, okay, but what is something? At least now we're hearing what something actually is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, there's a plan. How about that? We did not have a plan before, and it seems like we have a plan now. It's not always good stuff that you bring to us, but you bring it to us in promise of it, so that, you know, the plan is working, and when the plan's not working, and when it needs to be tweaked, and as all plans do. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I echo everything that's been said, and I think one of the things that stick out to me is that we have tools now that are measurable, and that's important to me. We have to be able to measure, where we're going, when we get there, and so that's really important. It can't be this ambiguous report, we've gotten in times past, and I know Ms. Hamilton was sitting there grinning from ear to ear, because since I have been on the board, that is what she's been asking, where is the data? And so, I just echo the sentiments of everyone on this board.
We have someone, that knows data, and when someone knows data and the purpose of data and how to use it,
Yes.
it is very apparent.
Yes.
You don't have to wonder.
It's awesome, thank you so much,
And double-digit growth is great.
I wanna say, but that belongs to,
Right.
without a vision, the people perish.
yeah.
So, I appreciate the accolades, but I wanna give the credit where the credit is due, cause I'm one person, and if they had not listened, or if they just said, I'm not gonna listen to that, or we've done that before, but your administrator stepped up in ways, I think there's not a one that I don't talk to at least once or twice every week, and sometimes once or twice daily, so they stepped up in immeasurable ways, so I appreciate what
Thank you.
you're saying, but that belongs to the people in the administrator, so I just wanna, they didn't have to listen.
Right.
They could have just
Right,
shut
that has
down,
happened.
but they stepped up.
It takes leadership. It takes leadership from top down.
It would be nice to see double-digit growth every year, but I doubt that's realistic. Because as that number goes up, it's gonna get harder and harder to push those other ones. But as long as we're seeing it go up, we're moving.
Yeah, and targeted professional development is key too, so, yeah, we're thankful for all of that.
Matthew's gonna do a brief update because it is a major change, and so just maybe a 2 or 3 minute, so the board's aware of what we're gonna be going through here.
Ms. Ash talked briefly about it. She mentioned the word clever. That's a product that is coming next year that I hope is going to make teachers and students' lives easier. We kind of dipped our toe into it, but as we wrap up this school year, we're gonna take a really hard look at all of the digital tools and resources that we have. What clever is a few things. The way that it's gonna help us the most is that, as you guys know, we're a Google Suite for Education district. So all of our students have Google accounts that they can use to log into. So they do that to log into Google Classroom, to have access to email if they're 13 and older, et cetera, et cetera. What we haven't done until Clever is have that be the only username and password that they really need to be aware of. What Clever does for us is it gives us a landing page for all of those digital resources, so that students log into Clever using their Google account, and everything that that student, that specific student, has access to shows up on that dashboard. So if we have a product that is specific to a school, students at that school will see that product, but students who belong to another school, when they log in, do not see that product. And when they want to go log into that product, Renaissance Place is an example, so AR and stuff. Pretty heavily used product in our school system for as long as I've been here. In the past, students had to know their username and password to that, which was different than their username and password to Compass, which was different than their username and password to Edgenuity, which might be different to something else. Now, yeah, all of this, and it changes every year. So every year it's, hey, let's export some new data, here's students, usernames and passwords, we'll make them similar if we can, but different systems have different requirements, so sometimes your password can't be exactly the same, maybe the usernames are already taken. Clever does away with all of that for us. Teachers and students log in one time with an account that they know, that they use all the time. MyOn, if they want to go to that, they click MyOn, it opens a new tab, automatically logs them into MyOn, they're off. So it handles that, what's my MyOn username and password, for them automatically. They just click on the link, takes them there, they're off there. So that's huge. The other piece that it does offer is rostering capability. So in the past, when we would get new programs, the first hurdle to get over before we can have students using them, or teachers for that matter, is getting staff and students in there. So sometimes that's an additional charge, that there's some custom piece of integration that the provider will do with information now to pull that data in for us. But with Clever being a rostering platform that students across the globe use, school systems across the globe use, so many applications now are just able to pull that from Clever. So what we do is we take our student data that's in iNow and PowerSchool in a year. All our student information is there, student names, their schedules, their teacher names. So when we have new products to add, we just say, hey, you just get that from Clever. We don't have to work with them to build custom scripts to export data in a specific format, because they already know how to pull that data from Clever. So we set up a few little simple rules, student data that goes out there, so it's easy to get the accurate student data into these programs, and it's easy for students and teachers to click on the icon. I mean, it's a big square icon, just click on it, boom, they're off and running. And teachers have access to, on their own, on the fly, add other applications that are in the Clever library. So let's say we have a teacher who really wants to go deep into coding, as an example. That's not something that we do kind of uniformly across the district. I mean, we have a teacher who's interested in that, and they have some time built into their lessons that, hey, I really want to push this because those concepts tie into, so, especially math, but that way of thinking blends into your everyday life. There are applications out there where a teacher can say, hey, maybe I want code.org to be useful in my class, I'm going to add code.org. So a teacher does that without having to involve us at all. They just add code.org, it shows up for their students, their student rosters are automatically out there, the kids, again, just click on code.org and they're off and running. So it's a really cool, really exciting way to kind of consolidate what we've been doing and streamline what we've been doing moving forward. Any questions?
Thank you, Matthew. Before you sit, would you just update the public concerning video recording?
Yes, so as you can see, we are recording. We've moved the platform over here to have better audio, and apologies for seeing the back of our head when we're presenting, but at least you can hear us better and you'll be able to see the board. We did a test run during the last meeting, and I uploaded that to a private video for the board to take a look at to see if they were happy with the quality, both video and audio. I've heard from a couple of them tonight that I think for $0 that this is an acceptable solution. So we're gonna put this up we'll put it on the public YouTube channel for the school system. I will say that Google sent us an email earlier this week that they're changing, it's called vanity accounts. They don't officially support vanity accounts for their G Suite for Education platform anymore, so they sent us an email that said, hey, here's a list of all your vanity accounts, we're gonna do away with those. So I am gonna have to build a new account with a new YouTube page. What we've done before to keep control is we have one account that all of our YouTube channels are under. So we have this one primary account, Butler County Schools is under that, Greenville High School is under that, any of the other ones we have. And then whoever needs access, like there will be somebody at Greenville High that maybe manages that for them. So we would just give them access to the channel to their actual account. But that keeps one account that if I'm not here, if Ashley's not here, we retire, we move on, whatever, whoever then has that admin account has access to those channels. Google's done away with that now, so one account has one channel. So we're gonna have to go to the point of, we're gonna have to create a Butler County Schools account that has only the Butler County Schools YouTube page on it. We'll have to create a Greenville High School account that only has the Greenville High School page. So that's a long explanation just to say that any of you guys, if you are currently subscribed to any of our YouTube channels, we haven't used them heavily, so I don't think there's a lot of subscribers out there already. But if you are, expect those pages to go away. Google's gonna do away with those. We'll construct new channels and we'll get those in the appropriate spots on the website so people can actually subscribe. And that's where these videos will wind up of everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, item 6 is our informational report on fundraising drives and requests for use of the school buses. And so we'll move on to item 7, which is approval of financial reports.
Okay, recommend approval of financial reports as presented, which would be the financial report, statement, March 2019, and the bank statements, March 2019.
Okay, we have a recommendation for approval of the said reports. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposes, nay. Thank you. Item 8 is our personnel report.
Okay, recommend approval of the personnel report as presented. It's revised,
All right, we have a recommendation for approval of the revised personnel report. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposes, nay. Okay, at this time, Mr. Morrow, Mr. Brown, any of your new hires present?
Yes, ma'am. First, I'd like to introduce, Mr. Ryan McNaughton. Mr. Ryan McNaughton is gonna be our ag teacher. Coach Bobby Fleming is gonna be our head baseball coach, football coach, and history teacher.
History teacher.
The next, person I'm gonna introduce is, she's got big shoes to fill because she's replacing a legend. But she is very capable of doing it, and, our new school secretary is gonna be Miss Kelly McCullough. And, even in the letter of recommendation I sent up on her in the last paragraph, I stated that all of her good qualities, but she makes some fine caramel popcorn. So maybe she'll bring y'all some.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Yes, sir.
I see that you're hiring Mr. McNaughton.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. He's got ties to Greenville, Alabama, sir.
Right.
He's got ties that he probably don't want to talk about his daddy and.
Yes, sir.
Uncle, see, Mr. McNaughton, you may not know, or maybe you do, that Michael and I graduated with your dad. Your dad's Keith, right?
He is Keith, yes.
See, you were kind of shaking your head like you didn't want to admit that. I'm assuming that when I was looking at your stuff, all those baseball skills were hereditary, I guess, from your dad.
By the way, your father's the only one that put me in the emergency room.
That's good for you.
I'm in the
Story
rest of
later.
the fastball.
Well, I hate to say it, but I actually pitched in college and I actually broke one of my buddy's eye sockets.
Oh, no. Like,
He tried.
Yes, sir.
Runs in the family. We're glad to have it.
Yes, welcome aboard, everyone, and thank you so much for doing a great job in advance. Okay, our next item on the agenda is our June regular board meeting. We're gonna need to move that for the sake of submission of our budget that's gonna be coming up. So for we're gonna stay with 6 p.m.
That works for me.
Yes, fine.
All right, so next, regular board meeting is going to be June 11th at 6 p.m., and that's on a Tuesday. Okay, Mr. Hamilton.
The board training.
Oh, that's right, we do need to talk about the whole board training. We have some proposed dates for that. Dr. Strickland.
Well, you know, I mean, when really it's, comes down to Andre's schedule, right?
Kinda does.
Yeah, yeah, he's so, and then the time was mentioned, and so I believe, from what I know from so far, that he would be able to move the time to 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock is definitely gonna work better for me. We have 4 proposed dates
Yeah,
here
so we-
for the meeting, so we need to decide on a date, 6/20, 24th, 27th.
Well, since most of us already block the third Thursday, why not use that?
That works.
Yeah.
That would be,
We already blocked that anyway, pretty much.
So I'll let you know, we'll confirm, I can put sheriff's.
Brandon, is that gonna be okay with you?
Third Thursday in June?
The whole board training.
Yeah. 5 o'clock.
I'll make it work.
I'll make it work, yeah, yeah,
Since we were originally scheduled for a
originally-
regular board meeting anyway.
yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Just gotta tweak some things, always tweaking the plan.
Okay, so we'll shoot for 5 p.m. on June 20th for the whole board training. Where? Would it be in your office, Dr.
Dr.
Strickland?
Stricker's office is down here.
Either one, is that where you're using, I know the training that I've been a part of is in my office, so.
Your office.
Okay.
Your office,
Okay,
okay.
we'll do that.
By the way, so that you-
Okay. All right, and so at this time now, next item on our agenda is our legal update from Mr. Hamilton.
There's currently pending litigation, of course, against the board involving Mr. West and several others regarding racial discrimination. There are some, upcoming depositions that are scheduled for the, second week of June. There've been some developments because one of the lawyers that represents, Dr. Stricker, who has now been appointed to the Circuit Court of Montgomery County, so we may have some changes in those dates. I'm still working on that. I'm scheduled to converse by telephone Monday and Tuesday with the other lawyers about that. Mr. Thornton still has a, pending complaint with the EEOC that should be dismissed, and we're, I don't have a clue. They're supposed to dismiss it so that the case can proceed, but otherwise, the last thing I got from the EEOC is they wanna conduct a, in-house investigation. Now, unfortunately, you can't have a lawsuit pending against the board at the same time he has an EEOC complaint. So Mr. Thornton and his counsel, shall we say, should make an election about what they wanna do. I can't do that for them. I conversed with the EEOC and counsel, and